This is the Sunshine Daycare Center in Mustang, understaffed and not financially able to hire another worker, until now. Janet Acorn, the owner of the center, has been working 13-hour days since she opened up in August. She wanted a quick way to find qualified employees. She placed an ad in the classified section yesterday, hoping for just a few inquiries. But with the high unemployment rate, the response to her tiny ad was tremendous.
Good afternoon, Sunshine Daycare. I'm sorry those positions have been filled. We are taking names just in case a position opens up at a later date if you'd be interested.
The phone's been ringing off the wall. Okay. In just one day, the 2 positions were filled after more than 200 telephone calls and 20 in-person applicants.
They started ringing them this morning about 7. I'm the first one in, and I would say we've had average about 1 every 5 minutes all day.
That's incredible. What about yesterday?
It was even busier than that yesterday, I think. It kept all 3 of us answering the phone all day.
For the employer, there are a multitude of potential employees out there anxious for a job. But for those potential employees, there's more waiting and more despair. Dan Slocum, Action 4 in Mustang.
Officer Hogue, of course, stopped his police vehicle and tried to apprehend the subject there at the scene. The man, who is a white male, apparently in his early 20s, instead ran in an easterly direction. Officer Hogue pursued him and cautioned him several times, according to witnesses, to halt. He did not. The officer fired shots from his service revolver. The suspect was hit in the upper right shoulder.
Before I get out of here today, I want to talk to you about it.
Many adults are now finding that going back to school is the first step in getting a job or a promotion. Oklahoma's vocational technical schools have experienced explosive growth in adult education in the past year. Students don't receive college credit, but quick, comprehensive job training. The traditional men and mechanics concept of VOTech is out. Female and computer-oriented programs are in.
We're seeing a lot of interest in computers, word processing in the clerical secretarial area, but mostly in those areas that have to do with the new computer technology. A lot of new computers are coming into small businesses, even into our homes, and people for that reason want more familiarity with what they are and how they operate.
VOTech instruction is also geared for high school students, but the focus is still high technology. Students are learning to operate machinery pre-programmed by a computer. McWaters says the computer age has created an interest and a necessity for teenagers and adults to further their education. Debbie Mash, Action 4 at Francis Tuttle VOTech.
Just a few months ago, people couldn't get their money out of the failed Penn Square Bank fast enough. Now a group of 15 investors hopes to attract these people back to a new bank in the Penn Square Mall. The group of 15 is headed by Oklahoma City businessman Stanley Lee, Francis Rooney of Tulsa, and Security Corporation, which owns Security Bank in Duncan. 3 months ago, the group submitted a proposal to the FDIC Board of Directors. They would purchase the remaining fixed assets of Penn Square Bank, including the main bank, the drive-in bank, and the remaining insured deposits of the bank, estimated at $10 to $12 million. If all goes well, a new bank named Mercantile National Bank will open soon.
Right now, it's envisioned that the closing on the transaction would occur sometime in December to perhaps very early January. Our objective is to, have everything completed and have a new bank in operation no later than January 2nd or 3rd.
Bauman hopes to file a charter application for the new bank with the controller of the currency tomorrow.
Final approval of the deal will have to come from Federal District Judge Luther Eubanks. If he says yes, then a new bank with a new name will take the place of Penn Square. Bill Ross, Action 4.
Our Marine captain, bless his soul, was awarded the Silver Star, and he was really the essence, the true essence of a Marine that morning.
You hang on to it.
Hurry, get in, get in.
Next. 1910, when Governor Haskell had his private secretary to remove the seal and other papers from Guthrie, he indicated that all he needed to bring to Oklahoma City with him was the Great Seal of the state of Oklahoma and those papers that would be necessary to officiate government. Well, we have the seal, and we definitely have papers in Guthrie. So, on to Guthrie and on to the Capitol.
Let's go!
You were ready? You need to have a magic shot? No, it's he wants an inference.
Timothy Rist listened quietly as a Cleveland County prosecutor told the 7-man, 5-woman jury what he thinks happened at Sharp's Cleaners in Moore the evening of March 6th. The state contends Rist and 2 of his friends robbed the cleaners where Tammy Carter worked, then killed the robbery's only witness.
A robbery of Sharp's Cleaners was planned by a group of 3 people. that one of those people was Timothy Rist, and that robbery was carried out, and during the course of that robbery, something went awry, and a person was killed by Timothy Rist and his friends.
The district attorney was not present, and he has no personal knowledge, and that at the conclusion of this proceeding, the people who will know the most about this matter will be yourselves.
Former state medical examiner Dr. A.J. Chapman performed the autopsy on the teenager's bludgeoned body. He described the multiple head lacerations, puncture wounds, and lone bite mark found on the victim's right breast. That bite mark closely resembles a mouth impression taken from one of Rist's friends. Defense attorneys said 2 alibi witnesses and Rist himself would testify that the defendant was changing a car's fuel pump at the time of the murder. The state should finish its presentation tomorrow. Rist's defense is expected to take a couple of days. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Norman.
Some of Oklahoma's best-known personalities were on hand tonight for the Diamond Jubilee Statehood Ball. This event is one of the final highlights of the Diamond Jubilee celebration. 2,000 invitations were issued to state and national leaders. Classic musical selections were performed for the audience, many of whom were dressed in early 1900 garb. Floral hats and flowing gowns were abundant in the audience tonight, reminiscent of the days when Oklahoma finally became a state. This hall at Guthrie Scottish Rite Temple will see one more activity before the night is up. Couples will be dancing to the sound of a swing band, all enjoying Oklahoma's 75th birthday. Kevin Ogle, Action 4 in Guthrie.
The City of Mustang Police Department.
And what was your assignment with the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner?
I was approximately 6, almost 7 years.
Were you involved in law enforcement?
I interviewed Officer Stewart, who apparently was the first rear exit of Sharp's Cleaners. It depicts a portion has either been cast off or in some way propelled.
Did anything come to your attention on the pavement outside the cleaners?
Yes, sir, there were several items.
Did you notice any footprints?
Yes, sir, I did.
We are geared up to handle an awful lot of that. We can relay water through a procedure that we have. There are some alternative things that we can do that still provide us some water on the fire scene, especially if we know it ahead of time. It may inconvenience us a little bit, just like it does the public, but we're still going to provide that fire protection out there.
Timothy Rist kept his poker face throughout the trial. He had taken the stand to deny he had anything to do with the brutal slaying of the Moore teenager. He listened quietly to accusations he was a cold-blooded killer And Rist kept his composure today as the jury delivered its verdict.
We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn to try the above entitled cause, upon our oaths, find the defendant not guilty.
The victim's parents expressed disbelief at the not guilty decision. They remain convinced Rist is guilty despite the verdict. The winning and losing attorneys didn't agree on a lot of facts in this case, but they do agree that Rist's guilt or innocence hinged on a 13-inch human head hair found on the victim's battered body.
I think that the jury felt, as I felt all along, that you don't send someone to prison for the rest of his life on account of one hair, especially one that's got a 5-inch length discrepancy. It never was explained, and I still can't explain it, and I've been trying to figure it out for the last 6 months.
I don't know of anything else that we could have brought in that would have been any better. We didn't have anybody that we knew of that saw him either at the cleaners or anywhere near Tamara Carter that day. And so we simply had to go with what we had, and the strongest piece of evidence we had was the hair that was found on her clothing.
Now that Timothy Rist is a free man, he says he'll visit his family out of state and try to put his life back together. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Norman.
The small town of Eakly, Oklahoma is upset, and understandably so. Late last week, 10-year-old Alex Ozaz died after a freak playground accident at the school. The boy's funeral today was a reminder of the tragedy. Following the accident, some parents have charged that the playground is run down and unsafe. Others have offered whatever help the school board thinks is needed to ensure that no other accidents occur. The small swing set that fell on the fourth grader has already been removed, and the school administrator says he doesn't believe there will be any major changes as a result of the accident.
Nothing by that nature has been suggested to me yet. Of course, I have talked with board members, and their feelings are the same as everyone else. It was one of those things that was very, very unfortunate. As far as any basic policy changes or anything, I'm not aware of any that are in the works at this time.
Parents contacted Action 4 about a meeting tonight to discuss what needs to be done about the playground here at Eakly, Oklahoma. A school administrator says that they weren't aware of any meeting, but he said that they do want to know what the parents have to say, because if the school and the parents work together, they can solve any problems before they occur. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 in Eakly, Oklahoma.
Straight feet. There you go.
We receive appreciation from the kids. Sometimes later in years they come up and say, you know, hey, you bought us me a pair of shoes once. And also working through the middle school, while we have children come up every week to our regular meeting and get up and give a short talk about themselves or about their school or whatever. And a lot of times the kids that's here will be the ones that will be there later on in years. And so we have contact with them throughout.
You know, it's not just a dinner. It's a matter of the attitude and the environment, the atmosphere of being festive, so that not only do they receive the dinner as such, the sustenance for themselves, but the home and the atmosphere, and so that they feel like they are in some of a family setting.
Thank you. A Merry Christmas to you. It's not near as good as it was last year, and yet our needs will be much greater. But we have many, many more families this year than we've ever had, perhaps for a good many years. The people know the Salvation Army. They know the work that we have done in the community, and I believe they'll be with us in the days to come. I have a lot of faith. And the needs being greater, and I believe they know it.
C.B. Abel, Deputy U.S. Marshal. There's a summons and an order.
Okay.
And that's to appear in Muskogee at 1:30 tomorrow. They all read the same.
Teresa Walker. Teresa Walker?
I ain't here at the moment.
Joanne Patton.
He's using
We have no preference. I mean, they have a constitution there, and it gives them legal stipulations as to how they go about electing their officials. But as far as us, getting involved in, we're in a ministerial capacity.
Work smarter, not harder. That's the philosophy of efficiency experts at Baptist Medical Center. Management engineers at Baptist estimate increased worker productivity has saved the hospital $1.5 million a year for the past 2 years. For example, the hospital's medical lab has been able to handle a heavier workload with fewer workers. Efficiency experts say they've been able to trim wasted effort by getting employees to take a fresh look at their jobs.
We try and teach people that they don't have to do it the same way they've always done it. We like to inspire creativity in people to look for different ways to do their work. We find that the people who know this the best are the people who do the work. So we like to talk with the people who are doing the jobs and ask them if there's any way that they can do their work better.
Recent changes in Medicare laws will encourage other hospitals to find ways to cut costs. The quotation, "less is more," won't just be heard in relation to architecture. It will also apply to the business of running a hospital. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at Baptist Medical Center.
Lee's offer was one that afforded the FDIC the proceeds of the assets with no contingencies other than good title. They were willing to pay $2,557,000, willing to provide us with space, the FDIC space in the main bank building for a year at a very attractive rental. The other offer had some serious contingencies that we were concerned with. The 1,000-foot banking rule for a motor bank was a very serious question. The question of insuring trust deposits was a very serious question. So we just couldn't predict with any certainty at all whether or not the other offer would finally obtain.
The thing that we can give that these other techniques can't give is an impression and an evaluation of function. How well do the lungs really receive blood? How well are they able to get rid of air and exchange air? So that it's very useful from this dynamic standpoint.
Because I think it would be terribly unfair that if Oklahomans and people from rural states were, who were going to pay more taxes are asked to pay this tax, and then all the money went back east to mass transit systems, which will be of little or no benefit to the people who are paying the taxes.
Oklahoma could probably do much more with a 3-cent state tax than what a federal tax of a nickel would do as far as improving our roads.
The Prince family looks at what used to be their home with a mixture of sadness and thanksgiving. Early in the morning, a week ago Saturday, a log rolled from the fireplace while the family slept. The fire burned for nearly half an hour before one of the children was awakened by a smoke detector. The first grader calmly alerted her parents, and the family managed to escape the fire with only a few minor injuries. The 6-year-old told her parents she had learned what to do from firefighters visiting her school.
In October, we had National Fire Prevention Week. And during that time, we had some of the fire companies to go to the various schools and talk about fire safety to the children. As a result, the young girl here, she said that the firefighters had come to her school and told her about what to do should her house catch a fire or should she hear the alarm. So I feel that that, along with the smoke detectors, I think it has a great impact on what we're seeing now.
We got our mask on when we headed up here and run into you. And
Firefighters say that nearly a quarter of the fire deaths they see are young children. Since they began their education program, fire deaths have been cut in half. They hope there's a connection. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 in southwest Oklahoma City.
An Oklahoma City viewer writes in and says, "My husband and I have been married for less than 6 months and wonder if we can obtain an annulment instead of a divorce. Is there a time limit on which an annulment depends?" Well, there are only 2 grounds for the granting of an annulment in Oklahoma. If a person remarries someone other than their former spouse within the 6-month period following a divorce, then an annulment is possible. Or the second ground for an annulment is if either party is mentally incompetent or too young to marry, so as to be unable to understand the contracting of the marriage. Then an annulment is also possible. The length of your marriage is not determinative of whether or not you are entitled to an annulment. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs. A viewer writes in and asks, "I want to leave my home to my son, but I don't want his wife to have it in case something happens to him. What can I do to see that only my son inherits my home?" Well, Oklahoma law does not favor your continued control of the property beyond yours and your son's death. Therefore, what you seek is not easy. You might decide to give your son a life estate in the property, with the full power to use and enjoy the benefits of it for his lifetime, with the provision then upon his death that the property go to some other named party. However, he could not sell or dispose of the property and would not be considered the true owner. Other legal devices you might use would include the operation of a trust for your son's benefit, but he still would not be considered the true owner of the property. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs. A viewer says, I recently heard somewhere that some parts of the nation's tax laws are unconstitutional and that no one really has to file a federal income tax return. Is that true? Well, no, none of that is true, and I'm sure you didn't hear it from the IRS. Various so-called illegal tax protest contentions have gone before the courts in recent years, and each have repeatedly been judged to be frivolous. Persons following such advice face heavy fines and penalties, the payment of all back taxes, and possibly even imprisonment. Incidentally, as a result of a new law, just for filing an income tax return that is judged to be frivolous, a person can be fined up to $500. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs.